What a blessing it is to live in a land like we do. Isn't it great that we have the opportunity to live in the promised land? And isn't it great that we have a Constitution that was inspired by our Heavenly Father, the supreme law of the land? How many of you people believe that our Constitution was inspired? And how many of you believe that this Constitution is the supreme law of the land?
The only law of the land.
Why did our Pilgrim Fathers leave their land and their home and come to this land? What were they after? Wasn't they after freedom and liberty? Wasn't they after the opportunity to exercise their agency? Wasn't that our Heavenly Father's plan to send us here and we get a body and we get to choose our way of life? That's what His plan was. We'd have agency. You know, in America, we was here for almost 200 years, and we still didn't have our freedom and liberty, and we didn't have our agency. That's what our founding fathers, our Pilgrim Fathers, come here for. And they still didn't have it. They still had to fight the largest and strongest army in the world, the British Army. And they fought the British Army because that British Army was a central government that had unlimited power over them, and they were tired of it. And we, the people, fought that British Army, and we won. And after we won that war, our founding fathers had no intent to ever create another central government, a big power government. They wasn't even willing to give a new government any property. But after a time, they created our Constitution. And how much property did they say the United States could have? 10 miles square. They allowed the United States to have 10 miles square. Did they give the United States 10 miles square? No, they didn't. The United States had to purchase that land from several states with the consent of their state legislators, and then they got the 10 miles square. And then the Constitution says, our founding fathers said that they could have other land. What other land could they have? Yes. And how did they get that land? How could they have that land? They have to purchase it from who? The states. The states within the United States, the federal government has to purchase that land from those states and for a purpose. And they have to have the consent of the legislature of the state of Nevada or the state, whatever they're in, and they have to have approval from the United States Congress before they can purchase it. And when they purchase it, well, what about purchasing this for a wilderness? Or what about a federal park? I mean, does our Constitution say they can do that? What about a monument? Where does it say about monuments that they can purchase it for a monument? Okay, so if we're going to abide by our Constitution, you just said that you believed that it was inspired, and you just said that it was the supreme law of the land. So what are we doing negotiating with the federal government over our land? I don't understand that. Now, before I go any further, I want to clarify one thing. What other land can the United States own? Territories. Article 4:3 of our Constitution says that the United States has unlimited power to dispose of and to make all rules and regulations over territories of the United States. What's a territory? We still have territories in the United States. What, Puerto Rico is a territory. Is Puerto Rico a state? It's a territory. Does Puerto Rico have the Constitution? No, it doesn't have a Constitution. It has what maybe Congress allows it to have, some parts of the Constitution, but Puerto Rico is not a state. It does not have our Constitution. Our Constitution, what does our Constitution do? It limits the federal government. That's what the Constitution does. And after the limits, where does the power lay after the limits of the Constitution? And the people. So let's talk about Cliven Bundy owing $1,200,000 in grazing fee. First, I want to tell you that I've never received a bill from the federal government. The media has pretty well picked this up, but you know, like BLM, I guess, told the media, I don't know. But let's talk about Cliven Bundy owing $1.2 million federal government, to the federal government. And Cliven Bundy says, I didn't know the federal government owned any land in Nevada. You know, maybe Nellis Air Force Base, maybe Mercury, the atomic bomb testing area, maybe they own those pieces of property. If they bought it from the state of Nevada with the consent of our legislators and the consent of Congress, maybe they own that property. But not where Cliven Bundy raises his cattle. They don't own that property. The United States government does not own that property where I run my cattle. There's one other thing that Cliven Bundy don't have with the federal government. I do not have a contract with the federal government. I do not have a grazing rights that permit or license from the federal government. I have private property rights. And you know how I got those private property rights? My forefathers created those rights through beneficial use of the water and the land. That's how I get rights. The federal government never gave me no rights. The states never gave me no rights. They never gave me no water rights. They never gave me no grazing rights. My forefathers struggled through sweat and blood and created those rights through beneficial use. And guess what? The state of Nevada has laws that back that up. They back up my rights. So now let's go back 20 years and talk a little bit more about my grazing fees. You know, 20 years ago, I used to be involved in the Nevada Land Action Committee, which was the legal support of Nevada cattlemen's. I was involved with the Farm Bureau. I was involved with the committees, BLM advisory boards, I guess is what I wanted to say, advisory boards. I was involved with state advisory boards. And I was involved with a program of grazing cattle on supposedly United States public land. But you know what, as time went on, I realized that our federal government was only managing the land to get rid of us ranchers and us resource users. All of their programs were to get rid of us. And you know what I did? I finally said no. I'm not going to participate in this anymore. And then I finally said, hell no. And so I wrote 3 different letters, certified letters to the Solicitor of the United States. And I said, I have been participating in your program, and I realize that you are trying to manage me out of business. And I am no longer going to pay the United States government to manage my ranch out of business. And so a newspaper in Texas says, Bundy fired the BLM. So I become famous. I'm probably the only one that ever fired the BLM. And so But I had 52 neighbor ranchers in Clark County that didn't follow my action. And guess what happened to all 52 of them? Out of business. Administrative, regulatory, regulations run every one of them out of business. And so now I become famous to being the last man stands. And I felt that I was the last man standing in the cattle business in Clark County, Nevada, but I also felt like that I was the last man standing in Nevada for the Constitution. That believed in freedom and liberty, believed in the Constitution, believed the federal government don't own this land. And it takes me quite a while before I understand what's wrong. I understand now what's wrong is we the people contract with the federal government. Our counties, our school districts, our police department, all of them contract with the federal government. And I believe that if a man contracts with the federal government, that's constitutional. And let's just take grazing permits or license, for example. If a rancher goes down to the BLM office, federal office, and asks to, puts an application in for a grazing permit, and the federal government gives him a grazing permit, and then he signs the bottom of that grazing permit, what has he done? He's created a contract with the federal government. And then what happens on that is he pays his grazing piece to the federal government. That strengthens that contractor, doesn't it? Does anybody know about contract law? Man, you make a contract, then you make a payment on a contract, you're really in that contract, aren't you? Okay, now you don't like the management. And this has been going on in northern Nevada right now, it goes on all over the western ends. Now they don't like their manager. Now what have they done? They've signed a contract with the federal government for what? Like BLM? BLM, public land managers. They've signed a contract with the BLM to manage their ranch. Those rights that they have, they've hired somebody to manage them now. And now they don't like the management of that ranch. So what's going to happen? They're going to end up in a federal court. That's what the Constitution says. A man deals with the federal government, and you have a problem, you're going to end up in a federal court. If a school district takes money, and then there's some mandates. What's the mandate that we all complain about right now? What is it? Common Core. Everybody is complaining about Common Core. I say, I just say, I'm sorry. You spent the money, and now you've got to deal with the mandates. Probably area like this, they probably got several $1 million from the federal government to support their school system. And now they're complaining about Common Core. You people are complaining about Common Core. You signed the contract, you took the money, you spent the money, and now you don't want to abide by the mandates. And our police departments take money. Everybody takes money from the federal government. I don't know.
Let's not give it to them to begin with.
I don't know what America's going to do, but I do believe that it's time that we draw a line. We've got to draw a line. I want you in your mind to look at down a two-lane highway, and we have a white line down the middle of this black road. And on this side of the line, we have the federal government. We have the bureaucracies, and our bureaucracies have, let's say they have the rangers, they have their police department. And they, on this side of the line, I just learned this, there's 7,500 of the best educated, the smartest men in the world works as lawyers on this side of this line. So that they have their police power, they have their lawyers, they have their judges, they have their jails, whole system over here. And on this side of the line, we have our Constitution. We the people have our Constitution, inspired, and what did they call it? The law of the land. And we have our state sovereignty, we have our state laws, we have our sheriff, and we have our judges, we have our courts, we have our jails. Let me do it even a little better. What happened to those, did we ever get those passed out to everybody?
No, they're out on the table.
Okay, let me help. I've got 100 of these, and I don't know how many we've got in here, but you're welcome to have them. And let me tell you, this is a proper form of government. And when you read it, you got to remember that a cowboy wrote this, and he don't know much about writing. But anyway, he did it upside down. He did it all kinds. But anyway, I want you to start reading right here on the bottom. It says, "We the people of the 13 original colonies." Okay, what did we create? We fought the war. I talked about that. And we created, our founding fathers created our Constitution. We got the 3 forms of government within our federal government. We give our federal government very limited power. And then you get back up here, and pretty soon we have states. And when we become a state, we received our Constitution. And let me talk to you a little bit about this. There's a lot of confusion in the state of Nevada and the state of Utah, Wyoming, all these different western states about the Enabling Act of their state. And let me tell you something to just clear all of that Enabling Act problem up. Remember, the Enabling Act was written by the people of the territory of Utah, the people of the territory of Nevada. And the United States Congress, under Article 4 and 3 of the Constitution, has unlimited power over territories. Remember that. So Congress has all this power. Now say the people of Nevada, for example, they petition Congress to make a state out of the territory of Nevada. Well, when the Congress looks at the territory of Nevada, they said, you have a bad title. You don't have a clean title. Just like if you go to sell your house and it has a lien or something on it. It says you don't have a clean title. And so they said, well, Nevada has to clean up their title. So what do? They have certain rights being created on there, certain water rights and land rights and different kinds of rights, mining rights, all these type of things on this unappropriated land that's part of the territory of Nevada. So what does Nevada do? They disclaim all of those things. They say, forever we disclaim forever. I mean, gee whiz, that sounds bad. We're going to disclaim all of this land back to the federal government. They're going to disclaim. It's not the land they're disclaiming. It's the rights that they've created on this land is what they're disclaiming. So they disclaim all of these rights and on this unappropriated land within the boundaries of the territory of Nevada. And what does Congress say? Okay, we got all the rights, all these legal things you took care of now. President Lincoln declared in the state of Nevada, or the territory of Nevada, a state. And when President Lincoln declares it a state, he declares it a state under the equal footing of the original 13 states. Well, what did the original 13 states have? They had everything that our 10th Amendment tells us. They had everything except what little bit the Constitution says the United States have. They have all their land, they have political representation in Congress, they have everything. And that's what Nevada got. And that's what Utah was supposed to get. So now, why are we worried about the Enabling Act? Why is that a problem about our statehood? Why are we worried about that? Let me tell you what Mr. Ed Presley said. I want to quote him. He says it doesn't matter what happened before statehood. What matters is what happens at the moment of statehood. At the moment of statehood in the state of Nevada, we the people become citizens of the state of Nevada, not citizens of the territory of Nevada. We received our Constitution in fullness, just like you people said that you believed. And when we received it, we received everything that wasn't reserved to the United States. In the United States, there's only 10 square miles reserved. And a little bit of more property for military things. That's all that was reserved to the United States. Why are we thinking that Nevada has 87 or 89% of it belongs to the federal government? Where does that come from? Utah's the same thing. Wyoming's the same thing. New Mexico, Arizona, all of these western states, over 50% of the land in America is claimed by the federal government. Where does that come from? Where did you get educated that way? Why do you put up with that? Everybody's doing it. I guess they are. You know what? I want to talk to you a little bit about this, this land movement. And I know that it's going to touch somebody a little bit wrong. And I'm going to use Mr. Ken Ivory's name. I'm going to say, Mr. Ken Ivory, you go back to Washington. Okay, Ken Ivory goes back to Washington and he asked President Obama if he could get his land back here in Utah and the western United States. And Mr. Obama said no. And he's going to go to the United States Congress and he's going to say, we want our land back. Can you give us our land back? And they'll say no. And he'll go to the Supreme Court and he'll say, we want our land back, we need it. And the Supreme Court said, we can't do that. And then he's going to come back and say, Bundy, they won't give me our land back. And let me what I'll say. I'll say, well, they can't give you something that they don't have. I want to talk to you just a little bit about the spiritual side of things a little bit. You see these singers that sung here. That was a little family that sacrificed, and they came and spent about a week with us, and they sung several times. They sung at this here is Shauna explained. They sung there and brought our spirits back to where I can't even hardly talk to you about it. But they also sung at our different events. And they would come in and sing to us, in the morning, night, or evening night. You could imagine how a little family could actually join together and sing like they did, and with the Spirit and cooperate with each other. It was unbelievable. But they did. They lifted our spirits. But it wasn't only them that lifted our spirits. It was your prayers that lifted the spirits of us. Your prayers. And those that came, I often say that when I was able to shake the hands and hug and kiss the women, and I mean thousands of them. I figured probably maybe 4,000 people I greeted in that way. And you know what I found? That they all said they come because of some feeling they had. None of them seemed to know for sure what it was. They said they felt like they had to come. And over half of them, I figured, came further than the Mississippi River. Some of those people come like 3,700 miles. And they come not even really knowing why, except they felt like they needed to come and the Spirit was telling them. That picture back there that John painted, it's called Pray for America. And that was what he felt like, that's what we were doing at the ranch, is praying for America. But we wasn't alone. All over the world was praying for America. Let me express just one instance. It was about 2 weeks after the standoff, and I've told some of you this before. But 2 weeks after the standoff, I was in church, and I knew I had a telephone interview at 1:30. And so I was in a priesthood meeting, and the phone rang, and so I went outside the church house, and I leaned up against the wall, and I remembered the feeling that the shade was against the wall a little bit, out a foot or so away from the wall at 1:30, and the wall was still warm where the sun had hit it. So my back was up against the church house building. And the lady said, "Mr. Bundy, you're going to be talking to 72 nations and approximately 300 million people." And I, what am I going to say to 300 million people? I told them a few things. I remember a few things I said. One thing I said was, you need to love each other. Husbands, love your wives, and wives, love your husbands. And children, love your parents. And I didn't even really say love. Let me tell you what I said. I said, forgive each other. Forgive your wives, and forgive your husbands, and forgive your parents. And I said, all of you in this world needs to forgive each other, and it will make you happy. I remember saying that. And I talked to him for 20 minutes. Then I put up the phone and went back in and sat back down in my priesthood Orem class. Nobody in the world knew that Cliven Bundy did that. I hope that I helped when I had that opportunity. I did share with them, I think, about the Constitution. And I did tell them that America was the promised land, and we had the greatest Constitution on earth, and that our Constitution guarantees each individual sovereignty. Each individual, it guarantees us our agency and freedom and liberty. That our Constitution allows us to choose right from wrong. And it allows us to move about and to choose our occupation, to choose our religion, to choose our family way of life. Our choice is what we call freedom. If we don't have the opportunity to have choice, we don't have freedom. We don't have liberty. And I really believe that our Heavenly Father sent us here to this world that we might be able to exercise our agency, that we might have freedom and liberty, that we might be able to exercise those things. And I really have learned that our Constitution gives us those things. Only Constitution in the whole world that gives us our individual agency. You people, each one of you, are so important to our Heavenly Father. You're so important as individuals. He loves each of you, and He wants you to have your agency. When He inspired our founding fathers, He inspired them to write a Constitution that wouldn't only work in the United States, but would work every place in the world. And that Constitution would give the individual his agency. That's how important our Constitution is. Now, our Constitution will work here in this land, in this state, in this county. Our Constitution will work anywhere in the world, in any country. But, you know, sometimes we don't realize how simple it is. We the people. And our Constitution gives we the people our sovereignty. That means that we have the power to govern. And at the county level, we the people elect our county sheriffs. No, let me back up. We the people elect our county commissioners to represent us in the republic form of government. And we the people choose and elect our county sheriff. And we pay our county sheriff to protect our life, liberty, and property. And it don't stop even there. Let me tell you something. We the people elect our sheriffs, or our judges. And guess what? We the people are the jury. That's what our founding fathers set up for us. It's our duty, individuals, to make sure that that type of a government goes on here in your community. Now, let me talk a little bit about our federal government a little bit again. I'm going to use Harry Reid for example.
What's your language?
That's where. Let me tell you something about Harry Reid. I'm approached by the media. I'm approached by a lot of people. And they think that I should be mad at Harry Reid. Harry Reid represents what? Nevada has elected Harry Reid to be the senator for Nevada, the state of Nevada. The people of Nevada elected, the state of Nevada, people of Nevada elected him. And they elected him for a purpose, to go back and represent the state of Nevada in Washington, D.C. Okay, and it just happened to be that Harry Reid was the majority leader of the Senate, which gave him a lot of strength and power. That's great. Okay. But everybody wants to beat up Harry Reid. And I agree that Harry Reid's army was the army that was there to beat me up and to shoot me. I know that. But let me tell you what I say to Harry Reid. I said, Harry, the people of Nevada elected you to be their senator. Now get back to Washington, D.C. and do your job. And your job must be something to do with maybe taking care of the borders, some foreign affairs. And then if you come back to Nevada, you know, maybe your job would be to select the paint on the post office wall. And that's a little bit about like some of your representatives from Utah. Well, Hatch or whoever. Let me tell you something. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes we're making. We're all looking to Washington, D.C. to solve our problems. We all think that the people in Washington, D.C., including our president, has all of this power and strength. And that they're going to solve all of our problems. Or that they cause all of our problems. But let me stop you here. You're clapping because they could be causing all our trouble. But who is allowing it to happen? Yeah. Okay, who takes their money? Who signs their contracts? We do.
Welfare states.
We do those things. We take their money and we sign their contracts and then we complain about it. We've got to quit doing that. We've got to look at the federal government for what our Constitution says the federal government is supposed to do. It names and lists the things that they're supposed to do. And that's what we expect them to do. But we don't really expect them to come out here and create endangered species, as for example. Our wilderness areas, our monuments on our land, our parks. We don't expect, there's nothing in the Constitution saying they should come out here and be the managers of our ranches. We, the people, are allowing all those things to happen. And so, what Bundy would want to tell you today is we're going to have to start taking care of our own agency, our own republic form of government, the local level. And if we're going to ever beat our problems, we're going to have to beat them at the local level, not the Washington, D.C. level. You're never going to beat them in the courts, not in the federal courts. Have you ever heard of let's just take a rancher again. Have you ever heard of a rancher whipping the federal government in their court?
No.
Why do we keep on taking it that direction then? Cliven Bundy didn't take it that direction. And let me talk about freedom. Since the standoff, really you could go back 20 years. The standoff was just one place, took place when they wanted to flex their muscles a little bit. But for 20 years, I really haven't dealt with the BLM. They haven't been part of my life. If I haven't managed my ranch and made it pay, it's not the federal government's problem, it's my fault. And since the standoff, let me tell you something about my part of Clark County. Not only my ranch, but the surrounding part of Clark County. Do you realize that we have not had one federal truck or vehicle with a federal license plate in that area? For 8 months. We have not seen BLM, Park Service, Fish and Wildlife, or anybody else with a federal plate on in that part of the county. We have enjoyed freedom. We have enjoyed some liberty. And I have really enjoyed some peace also. I have went out and did my range improvements. In fact, even today, and even the last few days, we're still trying to fix some of the mess that the BLM actually tore up, some of our water structures. We're still trying to repair. But guess what? When I put those water structures in there, I had started looking over my shoulder, wondering when I was going to get arrested. When I went out there this last week and put those waters back in, guess what? I felt free. I want to express a little bit more about what Shauna was telling you. I want to express the fact that the Lord was with us. Not just with me, but with everybody that was there. I think that I don't know why or how it come, but the Lord, those people that come to the Bundy Ranch, including we the people and the militia that came with that feeling that they needed to come. It was inspired or prompted. And you know, all over the world, it's done something to people all over the world. I don't know much about other nations and how things work, but I realize something, that everyone on this earth is important to our Heavenly Father. And for some reason, under this Bundy standoff, they got a feeling of freedom and liberty. Most of my interviews with newspapers and radio and documentaries are with foreign countries. It's not local. It's not my neighboring towns or anything. It's foreign countries. They want to know about freedom. They want to know about our Constitution. They want to know why our federal government would bring an army against their citizens. They want to know why our federal government has guns that they point at their citizens. We all sort of want to know why, wouldn't we? Let me tell you something scary. And, you know, Shauna told you a little bit about how I acted each day. Let me tell you, when I went to bed at night through these standoff days for a couple of weeks, I didn't know what I was to do in the next morning. I understood that up on the hills around my ranch, that I had snipers pointing their guns at me. And I knew that both for, say, 10 days that I had a sniper. I was zeroed in on a sniper. I knew that every time I moved around. I knew that they had high-tech communication that was picking up all the voices and sounds of our family and all of our activities, all of our telephone calls. And let me tell you something that's a little bit scary. I learned this just last Tuesday, and I sort of let it brush off, but as I thought about it, it's sort of scary. I had somebody come up to me and said that they had a friend that was something to do with the federal government, FBI or something, I don't know quite what his position. But they made the comment to this guy and said, well, I guess sort of Bundy really sort of whipped you guys. And he said, no, Bundy didn't really whip us. He said what we gained was lots of information, that standoff. He gained all of the names and the phone numbers and the emails and all the communication of everybody that was, remember who these people were? They were people that come there because they felt like the Spirit had brought them there. Now the federal government has all of their names and they're trying to figure out who the leaders was. And then guess what he says? He says those people will disappear. Well, you know, there's lots of rumors. We've been through a lot of rumors, but they never could really shoot me because I never ever did nothing wrong. But they wanted me to do something wrong. They wanted my, when this standoff under the bridge, you know, I wasn't there. My sons was there, you people were there. And they had their guns pointed at them. And one of the things that really bothered me the worst is when I see a video, this is even months later, see the video with this Dan Love and my son Ammon, and the fence is in between them. And Love is saying, will you and your brothers come through the fence and we'll let you through the fence? And actually try to, you talk about evil. The feeling and the expression on this man was evil. And what's he trying to do? He's trying to get my sons to separate from the crowd and come through the fence. And you know what they're going to do with my sons? They'd have killed them. But my sons were wise enough to say, no, we'll all come through the fence. And then the sheriff finally showed up. Remember, you know, I say remember. You know where I found the sheriff? A couple of days before, I found him under his desk down in Las Vegas. And when I finally brought him to the stand and wouldn't visit with him until he was in front of we the people, then he had tried to tell us his negotiation with the feds. And that we the people didn't accept that. We said, no, that's not the way it's going to be. And you know, I don't want this to go on too long, but I want to tell you something. I started to tell you how I didn't know what was going on last night until tomorrow. When tomorrow come, I knew sort of what I was guided to do. Then the night come, we said, okay, that was done, but what are we supposed to do tomorrow? We didn't really question what we're supposed to do tomorrow, because tomorrow we knew what we're supposed to do. And on the day that the sheriff was on the stand, I had got instructions, and I felt I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to tell that sheriff to disarm the bureaucrats. Take their guns away. That's the feeling I had. And so that's what I told the sheriff. I said, take the arms away from the bureaucrats. But you know that, but he didn't do that. If he would have done that, there wouldn't have been a standoff. But my county sheriff didn't do his job, the way it was instructed to do. He didn't do what the people asked him to do. And so the people had to make the stand. The people had to go and open the gates and get those cattle back. The people had to do that. That was the sheriff's job. And not only the sheriff's job, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to tell you who I'm mad at. I told you I wasn't mad at Harry Reid. I'm not mad at the federal government. Who am I mad at? Who's Bundy mad at? I'm mad at my governor of the state of Nevada. Wasn't he supposed to protect my, I'm a ranger. I produce. The governor sent his brand inspector to inspect my cows to the federal government and move them across state lines. Well, I'm pretty mad at the state of Nevada governor, and I'm pretty mad at the brand department. I pay them people every time I sell a cow a fee to protect my livestock. And who else am I mad about? Well, I'm a little bit mad at my county sheriff. Isn't he supposed to protect my life, liberty, and property? Yes. Yeah, you're darn right. So who am I mad at? I'm not mad at the federal government. I don't think they have any jurisdiction and authority. They don't. I'm not even mad at the judge. Let me tell you about the judge. The judge, in his decision against me, he writes, we don't recognize the state of Nevada. We don't recognize Nevada having a public land. We don't recognize Nevada law. And all of these answers you give to the lawsuit are moot, Mr. Bundy. They're moot. And I'm saying, Mr. Senior Judge Lloyd George, I'm going to hold you accountable. You don't even recognize our sovereignty as state of Nevada. You don't recognize anything. And this sort of eats on me for a couple of weeks. And then something clicks. The judge is 100% right. That court does not have no jurisdiction over the state of Nevada. That judge does not have no jurisdiction over Nevada public lands. That just does not have no jurisdiction over Nevada law. Judge Lloyd George was totally right when he called it his court. It was moot. All these issues was moot in front of his court. It took me 2 weeks to finally sink that into my head. Now, I don't understand why he still made a judgment, and his judgment says, Bundy, you're trespassing on federal land, and we give the United States the permission to seize and impound your cattle. He didn't give the United States permission to sell my cattle or move my cattle, only seize and put them in a corral. You know who broke the law from then on? The Nevada brand inspectors broke the law. They're the ones that, the court didn't order them to do anything, turn ownership over to the federal government, ship my cows and sell them.
Shoot them and bury them.
To shoot them and bury them. The court never said that. Our state of Nevada governor and his army did that. We got problems at home. Let me go a little bit more in one more day and then we'll stop this. Okay, remember what I was told to do on the morning with the sheriff? Was to tell the sheriff to disarm the bureaucracy. Not take their guns away. Not their First and Second Amendment rights, those people over there. They have the right to have the guns as much as me or you do. And I would stand for that, stand and say, every one of them men should have the rights to have their guns. But not federal issued guns. You take those issued guns away from them. Now, Bundy's not gonna have them poke those guns down his throat no more, and you're not gonna poke those guns down the citizens of America anymore. That's what I said. But listen to what the Lord told me the next day. I think it was really on a Monday. This is a Saturday, and on a Monday I wake up and guess what? I have a feeling, and the media they're really on me, and they're wanting to know things. And I tell the media, I said, if there's 3,100 sheriffs, county sheriffs across America, and this is what I felt I was instructed to say. I said, if those sheriffs, well, first I said, the instructions is all 3,100 of those sheriffs in their individual counties needs to take the guns away from the bureaucrats. Disarm the bureaucrats. That's what it said. Disarm the bureaucrats. And then he said, if you don't disarm the bureaucrats, take those guns away, we the people will have to fight, we the people, in a civil war. And we will face those guns. I felt like that was America's, maybe the last chance the Lord was going to give us. If we didn't take those guns away, we're going to face those guns in civil war. We the people against we the people. We're going to, those that's on this side of that line are going to have to face those on the other side of this line. And these on this other side, I'm talking about the bureaucrats. These people over on this side of the line now are the best paid, got the best health and welfare programs, the best retirement. They're driving the best equipment, best vehicles. They have the best communication, and they have the best guns.
Nah.
There's at least one in here that doubts. But anyway, it's good fun being here with you. I love you. I love America. I love the Constitution of America. I know that our problems was all solved by our founding fathers. You know, we don't even have to. I mean, it's bad news for the lawyers, but it's been true. Our Constitution has solved our problems. We just need to live by them. You know, I get in groups and I say things like, do you believe in the scriptures? Do you believe the scriptures was written by our Heavenly Father or the Lord, talking about the Bible? And do you believe those scriptures? Well, why, if our Constitution was written by inspiration, aren't they the same as scriptures? Thank you, America, and thank the world for being good. I want to say one last thing. My grandma used to always say this. She used to say, all of us could do better. Thank you. There's microphones coming up here. Just ask me any question. I might not be able to answer them, but I'll do the best I can, or we'll get somebody that can answer them.
Okay, back here.
Okay, we got one right here.
Corey?
You might, where there are no more of us, you might just come to the mic and we'll put them a couple of places. Okay, go ahead and ask.
See, I really am loud, but just by both ways, okay? I want to thank you for being an example of what we need in this country. Someone with a spine, someone who loves God and country and the Constitution is not afraid. Now my question is, what do you see coming now, considering your situation and anything else you want to share?
Well, you know, I have no fear. I feel like that I feel like we have a great future. I sort of get disappointed. It seemed like that the freedom thing should be catching on faster. I really see where the strength needs to come is through our county commissioners, and we need to start our counties, not our states, not our federal people, but our county people need to declare that they own this land, that they are the closest government to we the people. And in this literature, I want you to pick up one of those proper parts of the Constitution. You'll find some of the latest work that I and my family's been doing has been to promote county commissions to take and make a stand against their ownership of their own land. And I don't know whether that's ever happened. We had, last month, we had Nye County in Nevada attempt to make this resolution of making a stand. But you know what happens is these county commissioners and the people really want to make a stand, and then you have a county attorney that comes along and ruins it. And what they did on the Nye County deal is they ruined it by basically putting Ken Ivory things in it, which was saying more of a going into a study and going to Washington D.C. to ask for their land back and figuring that someday they'll be in a lawsuit and all this stuff. That's all nonsense. They should be declaring ownership of the land and making laws to back that up. So I see some of this happen, whether it's going to happen fast or it's going to take several years. I think it needs to happen soon. And I think that if one, like for example, the reason I put effort into Nye County is if Nye County would have passed a good resolution, which is written in that magazine, then there would have been 15 out of the 17 counties in Nevada would have passed that, following Nye County, and many counties in Utah and Wyoming and New Mexico and Arizona, they would have followed that lead. But when they don't accomplish that, nobody has, I don't know, we want to say guts to accomplish it, then it don't happen.
They want the money from the heads.
Yeah, the money's always an issue. And that's a big issue. But I don't know if I answered it good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever think about going the Wayne Hayes route at Fort Plains?
Wayne Hage, I've followed Wayne Hage and his family all for the last 30 years. So I know exactly about Wayne Hage and his route. And Cliven Bundy didn't go Wayne Hage's way, and I told Wayne Sr. before he died that he actually come and visited with me and sort of told me that I was right, I guess, before Senior Wayne died. But here's the difference between Cliven Bundy and Wayne Hage. I told Wayne Hage, you sued the wrong people. I said, Wayne, you sued the wrong people. Who was supposed to protect Wayne's life, liberty, and property?
Sure.
The sheriff, the state of Nevada, and the sheriff's supposed to protect. Here he is off suing the federal government for claims. Well, it don't matter if the federal government stole his cattle. They didn't really steal his cattle. Who allowed it to happen? The sheriff allowed it to happen, and the state brand inspector allowed it to happen. So who should be accountable? And that's one of the things you take 2 years ago, and I did it again, well, that's about 3 years ago, and I did it again 2 years ago, and I did it 20 years ago. What I did is wrote a certified letter to, starting at the governor and the legislators and the brand inspectors and even Fish and Wildlife, and then it went down to the county commissioners and sheriff. And I said, if the federal government comes and touches any of my property, my cows or any of my property, I'm going to hold you accountable. Who? I'm going to hold you guys accountable. You're elected to protect my life, liberty, and property. You're being paid to do that, and you're going to be accountable. Now, Wayne Hayes said, just opposite, he said, you take my cows, and I'm going to sue you in a claims court. And he sued the federal government for $28 million for taking his cattle and ruining his ranch. And then about almost 30 years later, he gets a decision. And he gets I'm not 100% on all the dollar figures, but he gets a decision of something like $4 million for takings. And so, and plus the interest, which the interest on $4 million over 20 years with 8% interest is quite a lot of money. So then now he gets, I think, another $6-something million for interest. So now Wayne Hage is supposed to get, let's just say, $10 million. And so then I call up Wayne Hage's family and I said, is the takings a permanent taking or is it a temporary taking? Well, they didn't even know what I was talking about. I said, well, if it's a permanent taking, you sold them for $28 million and you got 4, it sounded like they got a pretty good deal. But if it's not a permanent taking, it's a temporary taking, then they've taken your land for 20 years and you got paid for that 20 years, basically when they will use your ranch. You got your $4 million, and now you've got your ranch back in whole. You got your water rights, your grazing rights, everything's back in whole. So that's not too bad a deal. Now you can go ahead and ranch. Okay, but there's another lawsuit come on. By the way, Hage never could answer that question. Was it permanent or temporary? Which is very important. So now Little Wayne, they call him, he put some cattle out on the range and they trespass Little Wayne like they do me. And so now Little Wayne is fighting the trespass. And a lot of you get this great information that Judge Jones now is really getting after the BLM and Forest Service. He's listened to Hage's case. And let me tell you what happens. Judge Jones takes all of that 20 years of court case stuff and he analyzes it. And guess what Judge Jones says? He says, Wayne Hage, you really do have water rights. You really do have grazing rights. You really do have access rights. And guess what, Wayne? This gives you the first privilege to go and apply for a grazing permit from BLM. And so he turns to BLM and Forest Services. He turns to Little Wayne and he says, Wayne, you go and apply for a grazing permit at the BLM and Forest Service. And he says, you guys give him a permit. Okay? Now, Bundy calls him up again and says, Wayne, if you signed a grazing permit, you went back 30 years, back where your dad started from, and you haven't gained nothing. Now, right to today, I don't know whether Wayne has signed that permit or not, but that was the good news that they got out of the federal court.
So, with it now being transparent, that there's zero difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. And since we do live in a party system, which political party would you affiliate with?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I've been a Republican for many years, but a few months ago I changed over to Independent American Party. Now, this is something I didn't do for you, but let me do this for you. I'm going to take this American flag here. Can I take one of these with me, or?
You want me to hold it for you?
I'll make a lot of noise. Okay, we all know what the blue party is, don't we? We all know what the red party is.
Yeah.
Okay, we know who the blue party is. We know who the red party is. We got blue and we got red. You know, the blue party is not really too happy about a lot of things. And the red party is not very happy about a lot of things. We, the people, are not very happy with these two parties. We've been dealing with these parties for, I don't know, 100 years. And we have lost our liberties and freedoms, and we follow these two parties. But who knows what the white means? Purity. Don't we have 50 pure states with sovereignty? 50 of them with sovereignty. They have their borders around them, they have their counties, they have we the people, and there's 50 of them, pure white stars here representing the 50 sovereign states. And guess what? We have purity, white stripes here representing our pure Constitution. Now, you want to know what our future is? Our future is to pull from the blue and pull from the red and the Independent American Party and the Constitutional Party, all these other parties and all of these dominations of different colors and all of these people. We are the greatest. We are not blue, we're not red, we are independent Americans that believe that our Constitution is pure. And we are going to have a great future in America, but we're going to have to realize these states are sovereign, pure, and this Constitution is pure white.
The people of your faith support you, and your community support you. Have you got their support?
Before I answer that, I want to say one more thing about our flag. This is our banner. This is our banner. That we can straighten our county governments out by having this kind of banner. We can straighten our state government out, and we can straighten our federal government out. This is our banner. We don't need a banner. This is our banner. Okay, religion. If you pick up one of those May books that's out there, it will express what the leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints think about our nation and think about our Constitution. It will explain to you what they say about America. And there's no doubt that the leaders of our church, ever since Joseph Smith, believed that the Constitution was a divine document. And they believed that the Constitution, and even though the federal government treated the Mormon people terrible, run them clear out of their country, killed them themselves, actually, all of these things, and their state government did the same thing. The leaders of this church, of my faith, my church, never give up on the Constitution of the United States. And I don't believe today they'll give up. I believe there's a lot of people within the church that don't understand. And there's a lot of people that would basically be against me and my way of thinking. But that's just fine. I'll trade those people for all of the people in the world that do believe in the Constitution and freedom.
Do you have any plans to sue the sheriff or the governor? And also, will you or one of your boys run for sheriff?
I don't know about the sheriff, but let me tell you something. The media and even the sheriff and different people will say Bundy's a criminal, okay? And I'm saying, well, I'm not sure who the criminal is here. I'm saying, you know, you guys were out there stealing my cattle, destroying my range improvements, beating up my family, kidnapping my family, and pointing guns down we the people's throat with your army. Now, I'm just a rancher trying to abide by all the Nevada state laws. So I don't know who the criminal is here, so I don't know who's supposed to sue who. Now, yeah, I guess we could take and sue them for doing all that damage and all those things. But remember, who's responsible? If I was going to sue somebody, I'd have to sue the governor of the state of Nevada and the sheriff. So it's sort of a standoff. I've never heard from the feds one word since the standoff. And I've heard the sheriff mumble a little bit, but they definitely haven't said any, they haven't sued me, and neither have I sued them. I had, I don't know, about 25, 26 lawyers come forward and said they would do something, but, when it comes right down to it, I think we got the best defense. Let's take care of it as individuals, and let's take care of it at our county level. Our county people need to say, hey, this is not going to happen in our county, and we're going to declare that we own the land, we own the resources, and we are the managers of the lands and resources along with the stewards of the land that's using them. I think we just got to ignore the federal government. Okay.
I just want to comment on what you said to simplify it. What people need to understand is when we create a constitution and we have a delegated proper role in that constitution, it's found in 18 duties in Article 1, Section 8. The federal government doesn't have any power or jurisdiction to do any of these things, period, end of story. And you say, who's the criminals? Okay? When a crime's been committed, you have to show cause, you have to show damage. You have to say, look, whose property was damaged, whose rights were damaged, where is the damage done so the recourse would be made, okay? The criminals here are them. Not only are they oath breakers, but they're the ones who did the damage to your property. It's not their property. Period, end of story. It's a property right issue, and people have to stop recognizing that the federal government's got money. We brought up a million conversations tonight about the federal government and all the money and the bribes. We need to ask the question, where does the federal government get money? Because they don't have anything that they don't steal or redistribute or take. The federal government doesn't create wealth. They steal it, they consume it. So how do they get money to bribe these people and trick these people into contracts? Your friend says, hey, you need to go to the BLM to get a permit. Why? Why would you go to an unconstitutional agency and ask for permission to get a permit to operate and control your property? That's the most idiotic thing that any American could ever think in their life, because it's a trick to get you into a contract with the federal government, asking for permission, getting a license, paying fees, and it's nonsense.
Do you have a question?
Right.
Do you have a question for him?
I'm commenting on what he said. So, if we're going to understand those things, we go back to say, hey, the criminals were the people who came and stole your property. Those are the criminals, and the people who need to be brought to justice, and the sheriff needs to be tried for his crimes, for not protecting your life and your liberty, your property, period.
And that would be, you're totally right. Now let me make one comment here. I want to talk about guilt. Does Cliven Bundy have any guilt for running his cows on Nevada state property? Does Cliven Bundy have any guilt for not paying grazing fees to the federal government? No, I don't have no guilt, because I run my cattle on the state of Nevada land, Clark County, Nevada land, and I have no contract with the federal government.
No contract.
I don't have no guilt.
I was just wondering, you're talking earlier and you said that, they have their guns and we have ours, and then you kind of got cut off. What were you going to lead that into?
Okay, the media always wants to say that Bundy and we the people and the militia had lots of guns, and we really overpowered the federal government and their poor agencies, and so we're really criminals there. That's not true. I challenge the media all the time, show me one gun that's pointed at anybody, at an officer. There's a picture or two with a couple of militia people up on top of the bridge that's got guns. But you don't see nobody pointing a gun at anybody. But you see about 200 agencies pointing their gun at we the people. And that's when Bundy says, in America, we will never allow this to happen again. You're not going to stick your guns down our throat ever again in America.